Some stories don't feel real while you're hearing them. They feel like something pulled from a movie until you remember this actually happened. And once that realization hits, the story doesn't leave you. It stays with you long after the screen goes dark. This is one of those stories. Years ago, during one of the most brutal phases of Navy SEAL training, a young trainee sat exhausted on the edge of a pool. His lungs burned, his muscles shook, and his mind screamed for relief. He had just failed a test designed to break people. Like many who failed for the first time, he let the frustration show. He breathed loudly, dramatically, almost begging for sympathy. Then someone snapped at him. A massive 18-year-old kid from Wisconsin turned around and said quietly, through clenched teeth, "Shut up. Everyone here is hurting." No yelling, no insults, just truth. That moment stuck, not because it was harsh, but because it revealed the mindset of someone different. That kid's name was Ephraim. Years later, the world would learn exactly who he was. Fast forward to mid-2017. A group of active-duty Navy SEALs sat inside an office in Virginia, winding down after a long day. Emails closed, computers powered off. Then phones started lighting up, message after message, all saying the same thing: turn on the news. At first, no one panicked. Breaking news from the Middle East was common. But when the TV volume came on, the room went silent. On the screen was a photo, bearded American man holding an AK-47 standing behind a tank in a destroyed city. He wasn't a soldier, he wasn't deployed, and every SEAL in that room recognized him instantly. It was Ephraim. Years earlier, after graduating training, Ephraim had been assigned to a West Coast SEAL team. On his first deployment to Afghanistan, something happened that changed him forever. During a patrol, he was assigned rear security, watching behind the team. At one point, he turned around and saw two little girls running toward him. They couldn't have been older than 5 and 7. They were crying. They were wearing backpacks. Earlier that same day, his team had found a child's backpack rigged with explosives. So when Ephraim saw those backpacks, his blood ran cold. He shouted at them to stop. They didn't. He raised his rifle. His finger moved to the trigger. And right before he fired, the girls froze, turned around, and ran back into the village. No shots fired, no one hurt, but something broke inside Ephraim because he realized someone had been willing to turn children into weapons. That moment haunted him more than any firefight ever did. When he returned home, he couldn't shake it. He believed in the mission, but felt like he could do more. Years later, as ISIS rose to power in Iraq, slaughtering civilians by the thousands, Ephraim made a decision few people ever would. When his contract ended in early 2017, he didn't re-enlist. He sold his house, packed a backpack, grabbed his passport, and flew to Iraq alone. As a civilian, no backup, no air support, no rescue coming if things went wrong. He knew the risks, he accepted them anyway. When he arrived, he joined a small group of American volunteers working alongside Iraqi forces. At first, they delivered food, provided medical aid, and helped families survive. Then the war reached them. ISIS controlled Mosul, and the decision was made to take it back. Suddenly, Ephraim wasn't just helping civilians, he was fighting again. But this time, there was no safety net. During one mission, Ephraim and another volunteer discovered an underground tunnel system ISIS used to escape firefights. Without hesitation, they dropped inside. Pitch black, no night vision, no backup. They ran through darkness, throwing grenades ahead of them. At the end, they found an escape route. ISIS had already fled. The Iraqi army sealed the tunnel. That night, explosions echoed underground. ISIS fighters had realized they were trapped and chose death, but nothing prepared Ephraim for what came next. Inside Mosul, ISIS began executing civilians trying to flee. Entire families were gunned down in the streets. One morning, Ephraim looked down a road and saw dozens of bodies. Then he noticed movement. A little girl hiding under her dead mother. 2 wounded men beside her, alive. ISIS fighters were nearby. If nothing was done, they would all be killed. A rescue plan was made. A tank would lead Ephraim and volunteers would follow. Smoke cover would block ISIS's view. At the last moment, the vehicle driver backed out. The mission didn't stop. Ephraim and the others went on foot, behind a tank, into open fire. Bullets tore through the air. Mortar landed around them. ISIS fired blindly into the smoke. Ephraim felt himself dry heaving from fear, convinced he was about to die. Still, they moved forward. They reached the bodies, pulled the girl free, and dragged the wounded men back. Then disaster struck. One wounded man slipped into the tank's path. There was no way to warn the driver. Ephraim jumped, grabbed him, and rolled him clear as the tank passed inches away. Moments later, Ephraim was shot in the leg, bleeding, exposed. He looked at the wounded man and knew he couldn't save him. He held his hand and whispered, "I'm sorry," then ran. Somehow, the girl survived. She was 4 years old. Her name was Demoa. She lived. For the first time in a city filled with death, Ephraim cried. That image of Ephraim behind the tank went viral. News outlets called him a hero, but Ephraim never saw it that way. To him it was simple. Evil only wins when good people do nothing. If stories like this matter to you, stories about courage, darkness, and the human mind, support the channel and stay connected. Ephraim recovered from his injury, and instead of resting, he went back to another conflict zone to help again. Because some people don't run from darkness, they walk straight into it. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe for more real stories where psychology, mystery, and reality collide. Because the most terrifying monsters aren't myths, they're real, and so are the people who stand against them.